It took exactly 47 seconds. 47 seconds for FBI Director Kash Patel to go from a confident law enforcement chief to a man visibly searching for words before one of the most powerful oversight committees in the country. Senator Patty Murray had just asked the question that would expose one of the most significant examples of bureaucratic mismanagement in recent FBI history. What Patel said next would leave even seasoned senators silent in disbelief. The Hart Senate office building carried an unusual tension that February morning. Room 192, typically used for standard budget hearings, was filled beyond capacity, with reporters crowding in after rumors spread that FBI Director Kash Patel would be questioned about missing budget documents, workforce reductions, and claims of political retaliation inside the Bureau. At precisely 9:17 a.m., Senator Patty Murray, chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, called the hearing to order. With 3 decades in the Senate, Murray was known for her mastery of budget details and her intolerance for unprepared witnesses. That morning, she looked more focused than ever. Patel entered the chamber appearing self-assured, moving with the confidence of someone used to command. A close Trump ally, he had spent weeks preparing with stacks of briefing books and rehearsed talking points. His aides had told him to expect routine oversight, a few questions about operations, a chance to highlight arrests, and an opportunity to counter political criticism with numbers on drug seizures and gang prosecutions. But Murray had other plans. She began with a question that sounded routine enough. Director Patel, where is the fiscal year 2026 budget request for the FBI? The room fell silent. Patel shifted in his seat, glanced down at his notes, then back up at Murray. It's, being worked on, ma'am. Those 4 words would soon become one of the most damaging admissions of the Trump administration's second term. In that brief statement, Patel confirmed that the FBI, one of America's most vital security agencies, was functioning without a finalized budget. Murray leaned forward, her tone measured but firm. Have you reviewed it? Have you approved it? Not yet, Patel answered. The word yet implied the issue was temporary. But Murray's next question revealed the deeper problem. When will we get it? Patel's answer would echo throughout Washington for months. As soon as I can get it from my interagency partners and get it approved. Murray's follow-up was precise. 6 months from now? I don't know, ma'am. I'm not going to... Well, how do we, as Congress, do our budget and our work without that request and without the spend plan? And with that, the entire problem became clear. How could Congress fund the FBI without knowing its needs? How could a $10 billion federal agency operate without a financial plan? How could its director not have one ready? Patel's response made matters worse. Well, ma'am, I'm here. I'm doing the best I can. I can't make up answers. I'll commit to working on getting you the information you need. Then came silence. 8 long seconds of it. Reporters stopped typing. Staffers looked up from their notes. The moment felt frozen. Murray finally broke the silence. That is insufficient and deeply disturbing. She paused, waiting for Patel to defend himself or offer some kind of context. But he said nothing. No response? Murray asked. I've given my response, Patel said, though his voice lacked conviction. What followed would dominate cable news for days. With calm precision, Murray began explaining what Patel's failure meant for national law enforcement. The FBI has already lost 1,900 employees since 2023 due to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, she began. Under this administration, agents, analysts, linguists, cyber experts, and scientists are being asked to do more with less to keep our country safe. Each figure landed like a blow. 1,900 positions gone, and no budget plan in sight to restore them. Murray pressed on. Director Patel, we all understand that budget cuts reduce the FBI's capacity to counter terrorism, slow firearm background checks, and hinder operations targeting violent crime, narcotics, gangs, and organized crime. Then came the revelation that shook the room. Now, I understand you told our House colleagues yesterday that you don't want to reduce the FBI workforce. meaning you disagree with what President Trump is proposing. The accusation was clear. Patel was either contradicting his president or misleading Congress. Either way, his credibility was collapsing. Patel tried to recover. "No, I agree that we can sustain our mission with the proposed budget, and I agree with it. As I said yesterday, we can do more with more, and I gave examples of what that could mean." But Murray caught the inconsistency. "That's different from what you told the House yesterday. So what exactly are you communicating to the President and the White House about what you need? Because again, we don't have a budget request from you." Patel's next words showed how unprepared he was. "I'm not asking you for anything at this time." Murray was stunned. "So you can operate without a budget?" "I never said that," Patel replied defensively. "This is unprecedented," Murray said flatly, and she was right. Never before had an FBI director appeared before Congress without a budget request or a clear understanding of his agency's financial state. But she wasn't done. Murray shifted focus to the real-world effects of Patel's leadership. She recalled a success story. A few years ago, the Southeast Washington Safe Streets FBI task force worked with local sheriffs, police departments, and state corrections officials to carry out one of the largest drug seizures in the region's history. That, she said, was the FBI at its best, coordinating with local agencies to protect communities. Then she delivered her most damaging point. "Now we have an administration already cutting over $800 million in local law enforcement assistance for 2025, while proposing a $500 million cut to the FBI. The figures were staggering. $800 million stripped from local partners, $500 million from the FBI itself, and Patel had no budget to justify or defend it. "Director Patel," Murray asked, "how will cutting resources for local law enforcement, the very agencies your bureau depends on, help you keep America safe? How do you expect them to do more with less?" Patel's reply was classic bureaucratic evasion. "The FBI will continue to do what it does. Work with embedded state and local officers through our joint terrorism task forces, safe streets task forces, and gang task forces. Those positions remain prioritized and have not been reduced. With my reprogramming plan, which we've notified Congress of, you'll see an increase in field capacity nationwide." Murray cut through the jargon. "Again, we need to see the numbers and that budget from you." But the numbers didn't exist. The budget didn't exist. Patel had nothing concrete to offer. Then Murray moved to her final point, and it was the most serious of all. "President Trump has turned the Department of Justice into a political weapon against his perceived enemies," she said. "Under your leadership, the FBI has reassigned and pushed out career agents for political reasons. Fear and intimidation have spread throughout the Bureau, including reports of staff being polygraphed. We've even seen the arrest of a sitting judge in Wisconsin." Each allegation built on the previous one, painting a grim picture of an FBI more interested in politics than justice. Then came the most explosive charge. "You've reportedly placed FBI employees investigating January 6th cases on leave," Murray said. The room fell silent. It was the moment everyone had anticipated. Direct evidence, she suggested, of political retaliation. "Is that what you call keeping your promise of no politicization and no retribution?" she asked. Patel's answer would define his tenure. Instead of addressing the question, he shifted to statistics. "That's completely inaccurate. Let me tell you what the FBI has done since I took over. 8,276 federal arrests, 820 kilograms of fentanyl seized, enough to kill 250,000 people, more than 3,000 firearms recovered, 350 gang cases, 3,000 investigations against violent groups." It was textbook Patel, flooding the moment with numbers to avoid the issue. Murray wasn't persuaded. "That's not my question," she reminded him. "You asked if I was weaponizing the FBI, and I am not," Patel insisted. "I'm giving you concrete examples of men and women putting handcuffs on criminals who harm our children and innocent Americans." "I don't see weaponization," Murray began evenly, But you have placed on leave FBI employees who investigated January 6th. That sounds political to me. Patel's reply revealed his mindset. I have not placed anyone on leave who violated their ethical obligation or oath to the Constitution. The implication was unmistakable. In Patel's view, investigating January 6th itself might have been unethical. This is the smoking gun I was looking for, Murray pressed. So if they investigated January 6th, you think that violates their oath? And then came the moment replayed across every news network in America. Frustrated and visibly tense, Patel snapped. Nope. I think the common theme here is you putting words in my mouth, and I'm not going to tolerate it, nor will the men and women of the FBI. The tone was aggressive, the posture defensive, the message unmistakably hostile. Here was an FBI director, live on television, effectively warning a sitting senator not to question him. But Murray wasn't finished. Well, you did place on leave an analyst involved in the Russia election interference investigation. Is that politicization? Is that retribution? Patel's answer was revealing. No, not if she broke the law or ethical guidelines. I don't know which case you're talking about, but that's the standard. That one line, I don't know which case you're talking about, was perhaps his most damaging admission. The FBI director either didn't know the details of the personnel actions he'd approved, or he had authorized purges without understanding who was targeted or why. Then came his final statement, the one that would define his directorship. If you want to talk about someone attacked by a weaponized bureau, you're looking at him. And now he's the director, cleaning it up. There it was. An open admission that his leadership of the FBI was rooted in revenge, not law enforcement or public service. Revenge against the institution that had once investigated his former boss. Senator Murray closed with words that would echo through Washington. I'll just say this. The FBI must focus on keeping America safe, not on being used for partisan or political ends. The hearing adjourned, but the damage was already done. Within hours, clips of Patel's angry exchange were trending nationwide. The missing budget had become a rallying cry for frustrated agents. News outlets replayed his responses endlessly, and commentators dissected every moment. But the most serious fallout came from inside the bureau. Field offices across the country watched in disbelief as their director unraveled on live television. The man meant to represent their professionalism had embarrassed the entire institution. Former officials were blunt. "I've never seen anything like it," said one retired assistant director. "Showing up to a budget hearing without a budget. That's professional malpractice of the highest order." The political backlash was swift. Republican senators who had backed Patel's nomination quietly began questioning his competence. Democratic senators openly called for his resignation before the day was over. Even more telling was the response from within the FBI itself. Within 2 days, 3 field office agents associations publicly distanced themselves from Patel's performance. The FBI Agents Association, typically silent on internal matters, released a rare statement. Director Patel's testimony does not reflect the professionalism or competence of the men and women of the FBI. The budget crisis only worsened in the weeks that followed. Without an official budget submission, Congress couldn't approve funding for critical operations. Field offices scaled back investigations. Background checks slowed to a crawl. Counterterrorism work faced resource shortages not seen since before 9/11. Meanwhile, investigative journalists began uncovering the extent of Patel's personnel purges. What they found was even more damaging than Murray's. Questioning had implied. Internal FBI documents, leaked to the Washington Post, showed that at least 47 agents and analysts who had worked on January 6th cases had been reassigned or placed on leave since Patel took charge. The Russia investigation story was equally damning. The analyst Murray mentioned turned out to be a 15-year FBI veteran, recognized for outstanding counterintelligence work. Her only offense was participating in investigations that led to convictions of several Trump associates. By March, Patel's leadership had collapsed completely. Field offices were running on autopilot, senior agents were leaving in record numbers, and oversight had stalled as Patel still refused to submit the missing budget. The final breaking point came when a major terrorism case in California was jeopardized by lack of resources. Resources Congress could have provided months earlier had a budget request existed. On March 15, 2025, exactly 42 days after his disastrous testimony, Kash Patel resigned as FBI Director. His letter to President Trump was brief and bitter, blaming weaponized oversight and deep state obstruction for his failures. But the truth was far simpler. Patel was undone by his own incompetence. He had failed the most basic test of government leadership, managing his agency's resources. Senator Murray's response to the resignation was characteristically firm. The FBI deserves a director capable of handling essential management responsibilities. The American people deserve better than ideological purges disguised as leadership. The aftermath reshaped Washington. Inside the FBI, morale rebounded almost immediately. Agents who had spent months walking on eggshells felt free to return to their mission without fear of political loyalty tests. The budget crisis, however, took longer to resolve. Acting Director Sarah Chen spent her first month working non-stop to produce the budget Patel had never finished. What she found was worse than anyone realized. It wasn't just that he didn't have a budget ready, Chen later told congressional staff. He didn't even know what one should look like. There were no systems, no processes, no understanding of federal requirements. Senator Murray's reputation, meanwhile, soared. Her questioning of Patel became a case study in effective oversight, taught in public policy and political science courses. As Washington Post columnist Jennifer Rubin wrote, Murray's genius was focusing on competence, not ideology. By exposing Patel's inability to perform basic administrative tasks, she made his removal inevitable. The broader impact reached beyond Patel. Cabinet officials across the administration took note. No longer could they walk into hearings unprepared. Murray's dismantling of Patel had changed the standard. But perhaps the lasting lesson came from within the FBI itself. The Bureau's career professionals had endured political interference by staying true to their mission. When Patel tried to turn the agency into a political weapon, they quietly resisted. The FBI survived Kash Patel because it's bigger than any one director, said former counterterrorism chief Michael McGarity. But it shouldn't have to survive its own leadership. That was the real meaning of Murray's questioning. 6 months later, she was still receiving thank-you letters from FBI employees around the country, not for her politics, but for her precision. They thanked her for asking the simple question that revealed their director's unfitness for the job. Because sometimes, real oversight isn't about ideology or theater. It's about competence. Murray had asked basic questions about budgets, preparation, and responsibility, and found that the man leading America's top law enforcement agency lacked all three. The enemy's list was real. The political purges were happening, but in the end, Kash Patel was brought down not by his politics, but by his inability to do the job. And Senator Patty Murray had the evidence, or more accurately, the complete absence of evidence to prove it. In just 47 seconds, a single budget question had exposed one of the most unprepared directors in FBI history. And because of that moment, America's national security and its institutions emerged stronger.